Welcome back, friends. It is Friday and we are going to be making a sculpture today out of newspaper clay. Hopefully you started your newspaper soaking in water on Monday, and hopefully you also used your beaters that you would normally use for a cake and mixed it up really nicely in your crock pot or bucket or whatever you decided to use. So I'm just going to show you what mine looks like right now. This is the mixed up newspaper clay, and it just has like, it's kind of gross, it's got like bits and pieces in it a little bit, but mostly it looks like oatmeal maybe. You could make something really substantial, which is what I'm about to do, but you could also keep it simple and use some molds that you might have for like soap or cake pops or whatever if you want to. This is just like supposed to look like popsicles. This was, it used to have mochi in it, but you could use your egg container once it's empty and press it into the molds and let those dry and then glue them together, and you could make like Fabergé eggs later with some glitter and some paint. I am about to make a sculpture. So just to get you ready, I'm just going to use some toothpicks and a popsicle stick just so that I have some basic tools that I'm going to use. I'm going to set these aside and I'm going to get started. The first thing I'm going to do is squeeze some of the water, so gross, out of the clay, and I'm letting it go right back into the container. Okay, so I've squeezed out the water from 4 sort of balls of newspaper. I could easily do this with a group of people because I have a lot left over, so you could do it with your brother or sister or your family or whatever while you're staying inside. And I'm going to make just some simple bowl shapes out of these. So we're going to do some little pinch pots. You could make whatever you want. I brought this out just to kind of show you some crazy sculptures that you could make if you wanted to. You can make anything that you want. It doesn't have to be a pinch pot. It could be an animal that you like or a person that you like. I've built a woman out of it. I've built some birds out of it just by squeezing them into different shapes. So the first thing I'm going to do to make a bowl is to just push my thumb on the inside just like I would for a regular pinch pot. And then I'm just going to pinch and turn, and I'm going to let that water fall onto my protective paper that I put over my table. The reason I'm doing this outside is because it is kind of messy. You could certainly do it in your kitchen. I wouldn't recommend doing it in your living room. Okay, so this is my little pinch pot bowl shape, and I'm going to let that completely dry. It's probably going to take a day or two, maybe 3, to completely dry. When I made a woman out of it, it probably took a whole week to dry because it was like so jam-packed with wet newspaper on the inside of it. This one's going to be empty, so I'm hoping it's going to take a little bit less time to dry. Now all I did to make this clay was use newspaper and water. You can also add a little bit of Elmer's glue to your mixture, and that's going to make sure that it stays the way that you want it to look once it's dry. I don't feel like we're that worried about it. I think we're just kind of trying to have a good time. But if you're like, oh no, I need this like sculpture to be really, really permanent and I want to do some other things to it, you might want to add a little bit of Elmer's glue. We are going to do some things to this later, but you know, I'm not worried about it being like forever. So I'm going to do a little bird out of this one just so you can see how to sculpt it. So I'm just like kind of pinching a little beak first so I can kind of see where I want my body to be. We're going to keep it simple. We're not trying to make like every feather that looks exactly like a bird. We're trying to give a basic bird shape. Now I'm just kind of pinching his little head/body, because when you're making a bird, they don't necessarily have a separate head. I mean, it is separate, like if you look at their skeletal structure, but if you're looking at their little chubby body flying around, it kind of looks like one big piece. Now I'm just gonna make his little belly, just kind of curve it. I'm just pressing and turning and pressing and turning. I want to make sure I keep his little beak by pinching and turning like this, like I'm his little mama bird giving him some food. And now I'm just pressing and turning with the other hand, pressing and turning, and I'm going to pinch out sort of a little tail shape. You don't want it to be too long and skinny or it's going to end up falling off. Just like with the other clay, it has some limitations, but it is fun to play with for sure. I told you that my newspaper clay is kind of gross because it's squishy and kind of like lumpy and stuff, but I wouldn't say it smells bad. It smells just like water and newspaper. It doesn't stink or anything, and it's been sitting in that water for a week. Okay, so that's my little bird shape. You can see his little beak. He's gonna whistle to you in a minute when he wakes up. I'm gonna set that aside to dry, and maybe I'll put these two together. Really good, let that water get all over the place. This is a squishy, fun project. And maybe I'll make kind of a figure out of this one. So I'm gonna maybe stand it up like this. And I'm pushing down against the bottom of my palm to give it a flat surface. And I'm using my other hand to squeeze and turn to give it kind of a figural quality. Okay. And this one I would probably make it more into a figure when I'm ready to like paint it. I can certainly get out some more newspaper clay and add it to it to give it some arms and stuff, but your details are really gonna come out when you're painting. I'm gonna get a little bit more newspaper clay because I do have a lot more. Squeeze it out. I'm gonna break this in half so I can have I'm gonna make my arms curved, like they're kind of like she's holding, he or she is holding hands in the middle. Put this here, kind of smush it on like that. Smushing, 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 smushing. Okay, and then maybe I'll use this one to make like a little head. I like the way the water squeezes out when I squeeze it. Now, when I put the head on, in my previous one, the head ended up falling off. The great thing about this is it's just paper when it's dry, so you can glue it right back on when it's dry if it falls off in the drying process, or if it falls up while you're working, you can glue it on. But I might just make them separate and then glue them on later. Oh, she looks like she already has a little nose, wants to come out. And I would accentuate that by squishing and turning. Right, so there you have it. So I have my bowl that's staying together on its own. I got my bird that's staying together, it's on its own. All of my molds, and then I might have to glue back together my person once it's dry. I hope you have a great time, and I can't wait to see what you do.